Hello, everyone. Today it's time to talk about inflation, the gradual increase of the price of the goods and the services that we buy. Although these days we experience inflation a second way. We buy an item and then we open the packaging and there's almost no product inside. In fact, I'd like to demonstrate this right now. Here is a canister of peanuts, and on the side here is another package of peanuts, this one packaged in a plastic bag. Which one of these has more peanuts in it? Give you a second to guess. Okay, this one here, 8.75 ounces of peanuts. This one here, 10.3 ounces. So why would the company do this? Well, basically, it's trying to hide what is now known as shrinkflation from us. By having a package that makes a bigger presentation here, we are deceived into thinking we're getting more product, but in fact, we are not. Third way that we can experience inflation is if the product's quality is decreased or it's adulterated or watered down in some way. Perhaps at one point there was some actual maple syrup inside Pearl Milling Company's bottle of syrup, but at this point, sadly, there is no maple syrup at all. As well, here's a bottle of bacon bits. Again, the only problem is that there is no bacon inside the bottle. There's a lot more to inflation, so let's take a closer look. Inflation is measured by a government agency known as the Bureau of Labor Statistics, or BLS. The BLS checks and tracks the price of a basket of goods that the typical urban resident consumes. Inside the basket are things like food and clothing, to be sure, but also services like housing and energy. Inflation is expressed as a rate, and that rate is called the Consumer Price Index. Each year, the Federal Reserve Bank tries to have consumers experience an inflation rate of 2%. When doing research for my book on financial literacy called FinanciaLit, I learned that historical inflation runs about 3% per year. Now, inflation has also been described not so much as an increase in prices, but a decrease in the purchasing power of your money. If you think about it, if the price of an item has gone up, that means you need to present or give more dollars to buy that same item. So each dollar that you're presenting must be worth less. Now, inflation has been called public enemy number one because basically, unless you're living off the grid, you're experiencing it. However, that's really not the case. Inflation is really public enemy number two. Public enemy number one would be deflation. Deflation is the drop in prices, basically, when prices don't rise but actually fall. The reason why the Fed has a 2% inflation target is because basically it wants no part of deflation. And so if inflation starts falling below 2%, it starts pulling out various measures to keep prices at least stable to rising. And the reason is this: it is super scared of an economy where prices are falling and consumers, knowing and seeing them falling, hold off on making purchases on items that they know they can get in the future for a lower price. And so, if that persists, consumers will continue to put off making purchases and the economy will really suffer. Next, I want to talk to you about how we incorporate the measurement of our investment returns, knowing that inflation is out there lurking. What we're going to do with our investments is calculate their real rate of return. And so the real rate of return is, as I've shown here on the screen, is an investment's rate of return minus the inflation rate. So let's look at an example. Let's say that you have an investment that is earning 8% per year and inflation is 3% per year. Simply 8 minus 3 equals 5. So your wealth is growing and its purchasing power is growing at a rate of 5% per year. In my second video, Rule of 72 Overtime, we constructed this future value table. The idea is to take an amount of money and to grow it into the future by various potential rates that we could earn and then over several years that we could basically keep the money invested. But here I want to repurpose, if you will, this spreadsheet. Basically, we just established that the historical rate of inflation is 3% per year. So why not look at this here, this $1, as something that might cost you $1 today? And what I'm going to do is just scroll down this column and get, say, to year 50. So 50 years later, something that costs a dollar will cost $4.38. So basically, the price will be over four times what it was 50 years prior. The reason I point this out is simply that inflation over time is truly ravaging. Year to year, it doesn't seem like a lot. What's the big deal? 3%. But 3% compounds upon itself, just like an investment's value, and it can lead to truly extraordinary and really almost unfathomable prices in the future. Next, what we're going to do is set up a horse race. We're going to put $250 in an investment and we're going to grow it at 8%. We're also going to be tracking the price of a $250 pair of earbuds if the price does indeed track historical inflation and grow at a rate of 3%. So we've got our first year's results populated basically. The value of our investment will have grown by $20 or 8% of 250 and now be 270. However, our $270 won't buy 8% more than our 250 did a year prior. Why? Because the value of the earbuds or any other item totaling item or items totaling $250 will have grown to $258 in price. So now let's populate this table. Let's say that you are a professional starting a career at 22 and you want to know what life will look like at age 72. So here we have it. Basically, we're going to finish right here. We learn that the value of $250 invested, growing at 8%, will turn into $11,725. That's 46.9 times the original investment. However, if we recognize that the price of earbuds, or again, any item or items totaling $250 today, will be $1,096 in the future, that shows this relationship here to here shows that the purchasing power of our dollars has grown by 10.7. I'm a big fan of cross checking, that is, trying to arrive at the same result via two different methods. Now, earlier we said the real rate of return of an investment is what the investment's return is minus the inflation rate. So why don't we just set up another column and basically just say that we have an investment that's going to earn 5%. Let's also state that inflation will be 0%. In that world, basically, we're going to be able to see how many times over our investment has grown, and that is the real rate of return. And so we want to see if that's going to match the what we did with the other two columns. So what we learn here is that $250 growing at 5% will grow to $2,867, and that will be 11.47 times the initial $250 investment. And it does represent basically how many times our purchasing power will have grown. And so that's the model, so to speak. But in actuality, it'll grow 10.7 times. So by saying the real rate of return is the investment's rate of return minus the inflation rate, it appears that we're basically overstating what our results will be. Now, it's certainly not a huge difference, and estimating our real rate of return to be one minus the other is certainly useful and continues to be valuable in financial modeling. So, in summary, inflation is normally seen as a gradual increase in the prices of the goods and services that we consume. But sometimes it's actually seen as a gradual decrease in the quantity of the item that you're buying. Basically, this is known as shrinkflation, and it leaves us all dumbfounded when we open a box to see so little inside the box. A third way we can experience inflation is with a degradation or adulteration of the quality of the product itself. And then finally, Even at small percentages, the compounding effects of inflation over time can truly wreak havoc with our financial plans, our financial goals, and our financial dreams. So we darn well better plan and incorporate it into any financial models we prepare for ourselves. I hope you've enjoyed this look at inflation. If you've learned something, please like the video, share it, and subscribe to the Financial Lit channel.